that project. But, Mr. Van Ark, I guess the question I have, and it's on the funding mechanism, because I think I was the only Republican to chair the Budget Committee in California in the last 70 years. I'm an oxymoron to begin with. But you talk about TRIP bonds, and I think that's probably the federal qualified tax credit bonds discussed in the Senate on S 1436. And you're relying on about $12.6 billion on a bill that is a bill, not a law, I guess is my first concern. And, you know, both last year and the present federal fiscal year, we've zeroed out high-speed rail, so there's nothing there to fall back on. So, and even if you could say 1436 was a reality, if it's for 30, not 50, but let's use the $50 billion level, you can only use 2% of that per state. So based on 2%, that's $1 billion, and even the California State Treasurer testified a week ago that $1 billion can be leveraged into 1.5. I'm trying to figure out how to leverage my dollar into 150, but let's say it can happen. What do you do with the other 11.9 you're short based on your estimate given on that specific fact alone? I mean, it's a hypothetical funding source.
It's a calculation that's been done, that's been put into the business plan.
I understand.
As an example.
No, I understand it's a calculation, but the reality is it's not a law, it's a bill. If it were a law based on the bill, you couldn't count on more than $1 billion of it by the bill's language in and of itself. So if you take the language within the bill and it gives you $1 billion, not 12.9, and I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just saying I'm having trouble making these numbers add up based on the reality of what the bill says.
Again, the example in there is an example of how the mechanism could work rather than that being the funding mechanism.
I didn't understand that. I'm trying hard.
The calculation in the business plan is an example of how that could work.
It's an example of how it could work if the bill were law and if the bill did allow that, correct?
Correct, yes.
But it's not law and it doesn't allow it. So why would you use something that's not law, that's not allowed under the proposed law, as an example of how you're going to fund it is my biggest concern. There's $11.9 billion. The reason the people of California have turned against this project, and when it passed originally, I thought, how can you continue to bond California's the level we are? And I know from the federal perspective on the rail side, that's none of our business. But I live in California, so it's not a hit on the federal government. But we are creating a disaster in California. We've done it for the last 10 years. We have a bonding disaster, but you're using funds in here that are not even a pipe dream because there's no way in the world. But can I conclude one last question on here? I guess it's the per passenger mile cost that you've come up with. You have 20 cents per passenger mile based on 520 miles from L.A. to San Francisco. But in 2007, we had another hearing on high-speed rails, and we brought the best in France, Germany, Spain, Japan, and we've patterned a lot of our maglev and other things after that whole concept. But at their best, they found out that government had to fund it, which it's not allowed under the California High-Speed Train Act that was authorized to begin with. We can't do that, but we're doing it. But at that, they're paying 45 cents a mile for a very efficient program. How in the world, in these countries who really utilized high-speed rail, can we say we're going to do it for 20 cents when everybody else in the world, that's like how can you cook grits in for 3 minutes when everybody else in the world takes 15? How do you do it for 20 cents when everybody else spends 45?
And Mr. Van Ark, I would ask you to hold your response, and I would gladly give you my time as it comes back around to me to respond, but right now I want to make sure I am respectful to Mr. Sabo's time, and I would just remind the committee that if you have on-the-record questions that you would like to submit for Mr. Sabo, we will compile those and submit those after the hearing. At this that as well. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to utilize some of my time to allow Mr. Van Ark the opportunity to respond to Mr. Miller, and I thank you for your indulgence as well.
Mr. Chairman, members, the costs that we have got in our business plan have been cross-checked and are based on international costs. All the infrastructure costs, including the operations and maintenance costs, including the ticket pricing, obviously based on the different economic levels of the different countries, but cross-referencing and cross-checking to all the systems in the world has been done, including the Acela system on the Northeast Corridor that the Administrator has already referred to.
Thank you.